Okay, so today I'm going to discuss the new SAT reading passage or reading section. Okay, remember the new SAT is being completely revamped or has been completely revamped, and the first test will be in effect starting March of 2016. And I really can't say it changed that much, minus the fact that obvious things such as the sentence completions are gone, where you have to put in some of these really hard words into these blanks with a lot of hints in it. And it was criticized a lot for using a lot of hard words or arcane words, as they would say, but I really think it wasn't really that bad. And definitely a plus for kids who are weaker in vocabulary. Or weaker with harder vocabulary. But this test actually, on the flip side, might be harder because they're asking you words that you think you know, but you really don't know, or words that are very close in meaning, and it's used differently, right? So, for instance, people know what the word want means, right? Everybody thinks want simply means what? Desire. Right? But want can also mean lack, right? So you could say, oh, this, court case is wanting in evidence, actually means lacking in evidence. And I already saw the two tests, or all four tests, but 2 out of the 4 tests that College Board officially released as practice tests for the new model, they gave you the word want, and then they wanted you to pick lack. So you're going to have a lot more of those stuff. But beyond that, and another obvious thing is that there's only going to be 4 answers now, which to me makes no difference, because when there were 5 answer choices and they penalized you if you guessed and you got it wrong, they took out 1.25 instead of 1 when you got it wrong. This to me is meaningless because look, the 4th and 5th answers, or 2 out of the 5 answers on the SATs in the past, were garbage anyway. They were absolute garbage. I still remember an answer the College Board put on there. I couldn't believe it. One of the answer choices was something about intelligence of animals, and then one of the answer choices said monkey escaping from a zoo, and that just had nothing to do with anything in that passage. But they just put it in there anyway. So has this really changed? No. And since there's only 4 answer choices, this is actually very similar to the ACTs. And I actually think that's what they're really going for. The types of specific passages they're going to put, right? They're going to put literature, they're going to put science, and they're going to put, debates from great papers or something, and history. They're going to put a certain type of each passage, right? Or, one of each in a test, or that's what they said they're going to do, right? Which is very similar to the ACTs, right? And I really think they're trying to be like the ACTs. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's what they're trying to do. So how can you go about the reading section? Reading section is basically what? What's the best way to get good at reading? Read a lot, and then if you don't know a word, look it up. You're not going to improve if you don't look it up. And once you look it up and you start seeing that word over and over again, it's going to hopefully get into, long-term memory, and then you'll remember it, and it'll make a lot more sense, right? So we're looking at this passage right now over here, for example, and I'm going to discuss 2 different types of questions that they added. Otherwise, it's basically the same, minus the fact that there's only 4 answer choices. The 2 things I want to discuss is, one is this type of question over here. They put in this evidence, right? Evidence-based questions, which means, so they ask you a question. Over here, I'm pointing at question 8 over here. They ask you a question. It says, based on the passage as a whole, the author would agree most with, and you have to be careful of this, it says most, with which of the following statements? And this, you should get the answer from reading the whole thing. And I think that's another thing SAT is really trying to do, is they want you to really comprehend the whole passage instead of section by section. More of the questions are, they don't give you line references as much. Older SAT passages, they're very clear on almost every single question except main idea questions. They put in what line the answer's from, and 9 out of 10 times you could get the answer, except sometimes, let's say the answer, they refer to line 20, right? They refer to line 20, but the answer actually didn't come from there. It came from line 10, because they're saying, oh, what did they ask over here? But the answer was actually from here. That happened once in a while, but the new SAT, I think they're actually trying to make this happen more often, right? So they want you to read the thing in whole and hopefully comprehend the thing as a whole, right? So this is a new question. They give you usually no line reference. One of the questions actually had a line reference and then ask you a question right afterwards, which I found to be kind of really redundant. I don't see the point of that. But they ask you, so what would the author most agree with, and then you have to get the answer from this whole thing. And then afterwards, they're going to ask you, where did you get the answer from? Right? Which choice provides the best evidence? I know this may be very new, and it seems like it's very different, but it's actually not different at all from the old SAT. They just simply, like, when you're doing the questions anyway, you got to find the answer somewhere. Answer's in there somewhere, right? And all you have to do is go, highlight the, find the line that says the answer to the previous question right here. Okay, they're related. Now, what is the big downside of this? The big downside obviously is that if you get this one wrong, you're most likely going to get the next one wrong, right? Unless you got lucky. Okay, so how should you do this? Make sure you read the whole thing. I mean, as fast as possible, I recommend. But read the whole thing. Don't do one question and then don't read question 5 and then it says line 33 and then go to line 33 and try to get the answer. That'll work most of the time, but you won't get everything correct, or it'll be difficult to get everything correct. Okay. Now, the other type of question that they added was this thing over here, graphing question. Okay. They're really trying to mimic the ACT. So they give you a graph, and what I noticed out of the 4 practice tests that College Board officially released is they put in graphs that are not necessarily relevant to the passage. So they just jam some graph in there. So if this passage is specifically talking about population, what they did was just gave you some random graph about population. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the passage. And that's what I found to be shocking. I mean, what is the point of that? I really don't understand. And I forgot what exact statement they put, but they said, oh yeah, this is not necessarily reflected in the passage. So all you have to do is, for instance, let's just do this one really quickly. It says, based on figure 1, a significant change in the population occurred when. So all you have to do is look at this graph and where did the population have a significant change? Obviously, this is a very, very significant change because this is very, very gradual. And all you have to do is read the graph. And this question is basically the same thing as some of the questions on the math sections. Some questions on the math sections are basically reading questions. You have to be able to read the graph, which I find to be kind of ridiculous, but that's what they want you to do, so you gotta do it. And that's basically it. Basically, in a nutshell, that's the new reading section. So it's the omission or no more, removal of the sentence completion section, adding more evidence-based questions. They're going to put 2 or 1 or 2 in each passage, and they're going to have set passages. Now, are the passages easier? That's what I'm getting from a lot of students. I really don't think it's any easier than the old SAT. I think it's about the same, if not a little bit harder. I've seen out of the 4 tests that they released, there's a lot more abstract passages. So how can you, get better at that? Read more. That's the only way to really improve. Okay, and if you read well, a little bit of grammar, you'll do perfectly fine on the verbal section. But at the same time, if you read and you don't know the vocab words, then you should study the vocab words. So is vocabulary less important? No, I think it's just as important, except they're not testing you as directly, and you don't need to know words that are very, very not often used. But you do run across them in the passages. So they're making a very, very subjective call by not including those vocabulary words. Okay, so that's reading.